Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Namaste once again everyone.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste, namaste. So after completing the third chapter, including the summary, we now enter the fourth chapter of the Gita. If you recall, in the first chapter, Vyasacharya revealed the human problem of samsara through Arjuna. And it was shown that the human problem is in the form of Ragaha, Shokaha and Mohaha. Ragaha, the problem of emotional dependence upon external factors. Shokaha. Shokaha means because of this emotional dependence, the mind faces the problem of grief or sorrow, and which in turn leads to the third problem of moha. So when the mind is in the grip of emotional dependence and sorrow, it is not able to think properly. It is not able to discriminate properly. This indiscrimination or delusion or conflict is the third problem of moha. So the human problem or samsara can be described as raga, shoka and moha. This was the first chapter. And when Arjuna faced this problem intensely in the battlefield, first he tried to solve the problem by himself. And when he did not succeed, he did the most intelligent thing that any human being should do or will do. And that was surrendering at the feet of the Lord and accepting the Lord as his Guru. In Bhagavad Gita, even though at different stages Krishna plays different roles, somewhere he is a friend, somewhere he is the king, somewhere he is Saguna Ishvara, but throughout the Gita, the main function of Krishna, he mainly functions as a guru only, as a teacher. If you remember Dhyana Shlokas, Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuram Ardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So, when we are studying Bhagavad Gita, we must always look at Krishna as the Jagat Guru, the teacher. He may have different relationships for different people. But for Arjuna and his students of Gita like us, Krishna is Guru. And on Arjuna surrendering to Lord Krishna, Krishna willingly and happily accepted the role of a Guru. Then in the second chapter, Krishna started working on the solution. And Krishna's approach was that self-knowledge alone can be the remedy. Remedy for samsara, problem of samsara. Any other solution can only temporarily work as a palliative. No other solution other than self-knowledge can work as a curative. It cannot solve the problem. Therefore, Krishna decided to give self-knowledge to Arjuna, and because of that alone, Bhagavad Gita is called Atma Vidya. Of course, when we go through chapter after chapter in the Gita, we will find that Gita deals with umpteen topics, right from dietary discipline, about yoga. So many topics are discussed. But Gita primarily is a moksha shastra. Gita is Atma Vidya. And that is why, in Mahabharata, Bhishma at the time of his death glorifies Lord Krishna. And at the time of glorification, Bhishmacharya says this shloka, Vyavahita Pritana Mukham Nirikshya Swajanavadha Dvimukasya Dosha Bhutya Kumatim Aharat Atma Vidyaya Yascha Ranaratihi Paramasya Tasya Me Astu. Kumati Aharat Atma Vidyaya. So Bhishma is addressing Krishna. He says, when Arjuna was confused in the battlefield, O Lord, you removed the Kumatihi. Aharat means to remove. The confused intellect you removed. By what? Atma Vidyaya. So Bhishma Acharya also calls Bhagavad Gita as Atma Vidya only. He does not look upon Gita as some Bhakti Shastram or Karma Shastram or Yoga Shastram. Because the essence of Bhagavad Gita is Atma Jnana. It's a Jnana Shastram only, rather, self-knowledge. And in the second chapter, Krishna gives the entire range of sadhanas required for this self-knowledge, which is the only ultimate remedy for raga, shoka and moha. And as I said earlier also, second chapter is the essence of the entire Gita. And there Krishna talked about two stages of spiritual sadhana. The first stage being Karma Yoga, which is an active stage of sadhana. And the second is Jnana Yoga stage, which is passive or withdrawn stage, Nivritti Marga. So one is Pravritti Marga, another is Nivritti Marga. While one requires Anatma orientation, for Pravritti Marga, for Karma Yoga. The other requires, Jnana Yoga requires, Nivritti Marga requires Atma orientation. And being the summary of the entire Gita, Krishna deals with both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, although briefly in the second chapter. And Karma Yoga was prescribed as a means of mental purity. And Krishna made it very clear that Karma Yoga cannot give liberation. Karma Yoga can only give preparation. And preparation itself cannot give moksha. After preparing oneself, one has to go through Jnana Yoga, which is what Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Karma Yoga involves converting our activities into worship, and Jnana Yoga involves self-inquiry with the help of scriptures under the guidance of a guru. So in the second chapter, Krishna presented both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga in a capsule form, in a condensed form. Of course, the idea was that he will later on elaborate on these topics. As I said earlier also, it is similar to what the news channels in TV, radio and all follow. No? First headlines are stated, then the news is given in detail, then they will close with the news in brief or headlines again. This method of communication has been there right from Bhagavad Gita times, even earlier also probably, but at least to our knowledge from Bhagavad Gita times. In Sanskrit, it is called Sankshepa, Vistara, Sankshepa. And that is one of the best ways of communication. Even when you are making a presentation in a corporate setup, best thing is introduce the topic with some points, elaborate them, and then conclude with a summary. So condensation, elaboration or expansion and condensation again is the ideal method of teaching. So we can say second chapter is the condensation of Gita. And in fact, when we come to the 18th chapter, you will again find that is again condensation of the entire teaching that he has done. From 3rd chapter to 17th chapter, whatever elaboration he did, Krishna will condense it in 18th chapter. Therefore, Krishna had to elaborate both the topics, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And we saw that the 3rd chapter was an elaboration of the Karma Yoga. The 4th and the 5th chapters are going to be elaboration of Jnana Yoga. So, 2nd chapter condenses Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. 3rd chapter, expansion of Karma Yoga. 4th and 5th chapters are expansion of Jnana Yoga topic. And since Krishna considers Jnana Yoga to be abstract, which we all know, very subtle and difficult to absorb, he allots 2 chapters for elaborating on Jnana Yoga. And that's why the 3rd chapter was called Karma Yoga, and the 4th chapter is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. We will later discuss the significance of this title also. So with this background, we have to enter the 4th chapter. And we are going to get the elaboration of Jnana Yoga now. Therefore, only to understand this 3rd and 4th and 5th, these 2 chapters, especially 4th and 5th chapter, let us say, understand these chapters well, we have to remember the Jnana Yoga portion of the 2nd chapter, especially verses from 12 to 25, which is the condensation of Jnana Yoga. So, as we go through, when you get time, please keep revisiting those slokas. At least till this fourth and fifth chapter is over. Okay. But they are the essence of the entire Jnana Yoga, that 13 slokas in the second chapter. So with that, we will now read the first sloka of the fourth chapter. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Chaturthodhyayah Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Shri Bhagawad Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manurikshvakave Bravit. The Anvaya of this sloka is Shri Bhagawad Uvacha Aham Proktavan Imam Avyayam Yogam Vivasvate Vivasvan Praha Manave Manuhu Abravit Ikshvakave. The word meanings are Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Lord said, Aham Proktavan, I said, I imparted, Imam Avyayam Yogam, this eternal yoga, Vivasvate, to the Lord Sun, Surya Bhagavan. Vivasvan Praha, Lord Sun taught, Manave, taught the same yoga to Manu. Manuhu Abravit, Manu taught Ikshvakave to Ikshvaku. So the Lord said, I imparted this eternal yoga to Lord Sun. Lord Sun taught the same to Manu. Manu taught it to Ikshvaku. So even though Krishna's intention in elaboration, I mean, he wants to elaborate Jnana Yoga in the fourth chapter, but before entering that topic, Krishna takes a small diversion in the first 8 verses. And this diversion has got 2 topics. One is the greatness of Gita, Gita Stutihi, and the second is Avatara Rahasya. What is the avatara of the Lord? He discusses these 2 topics first, and afterwards, from 9th verse onwards, Krishna will come back to Jnana Yoga topic proper. So first, the topic of the glorification of Gita, and what is the greatness of Gita? Of course, when we studied the Dhyana Yogas, we did see the glorification of Gita being done in a particular manner. Here, Krishna is pointing out again. In fact, Dhyana Shlokas was not written by Krishna or Veda Vyasa. It was later Acharya wrote those Dhyana Shlokas, right? But here, Krishna is pointing out that Gita is a condensed form of the Vedas themselves. So 2 points we have to remember, which of course we did see when we studied the Dhyana Yogas also. The first point is that Gita is the condensed form of the Vedas. So you study Gita, it is equivalent to your having studied the essence of the Vedas. And the second point to note is, Krishna does not want to claim any originality with regard to the Gita teaching. Because in today's time, if we see what happens around the world, when we do something, even if it is borrowed from someone, and of course, as I said, in the scientific field, this is very, very prevalent rather. Some PhD student will publish a paper, or he will work on a research project, he will publish a paper. He will do the research. And somebody else, he will not publish a paper, he will do the research. And somebody else will use that research and publish a paper and put his name in that. As if it is his research he is presenting. plagiarism or what they call. The poor student will do the research and this man will come and put a title and take the credit for the whole thing, and maybe even he will get a doctorate degree based on that. This is not, it happens quite often. But here Krishna does not want to claim the teaching as his own original teaching. Even though we say Jagat Guru and all, Krishna is so humble. He says, Arjuna, at the outset, I want you to understand one thing, that this Vedic teaching is beginningless. It is anadi. It has no beginning at all. Nobody knows when it all started. And therefore, this is not my teaching. I am only one of the gurus in the parampara, one of the teachers in the parampara. And in our tradition, as we all know, we look upon the Vedas as a gift from the Lord himself at the beginning of the creation, given to the mankind through the rishis. So Lord transmitted this teaching to the rishis, and acting as the receiving centers, the rishis received the wisdom. So there is a transmitter Bhagawad, then receiver rishi. And that is why we look upon the Vedas as a revelation, technically called Apaurusheya Shastra. And the Veda contains all the teachings required for a good human living for the entire humanity. Whether human beings are interested in material prosperity or spiritual upliftment or fulfillment, Veda has the teaching for both. And it has been coming down in the form of Guru Shishya Parampara. And then Krishna says that by the passage of time, people lost interest in this teaching. And therefore, this teaching became weaker and weaker. And since it was Lord's teaching, the Lord himself had to take the responsibility of reviving the teaching for the benefit of mankind, for the benefit of the humanity. And therefore, the Lord once in a while finds out some method or other to revive this Vedic teaching. And Krishna says that one of the main purposes of my avatara is the revival of this Vedic teaching. All other leelas which are attributed to me are incidental. Like, what is all the stories in the Bhagavada Purana, exalt killing Kamsa, other asuras. But for that, Bhagavan does not require to take an avatara. Whereas to revive the Vedic teaching, Bhagavan has to take avatar. So therefore, Krishna says, whatever other roles I played, they are all incidental. My primary role is I am functioning as Jagat Guru, teaching you, O Arjuna, and through you, I am teaching the entire humanity. And not only that, Krishna himself will say in the 18th chapter, Ya idam paramam guhyam madbhakteshu madbhakteshvabhidasyati bhaktim mahi param kritva mame vaishyasya samshayah. Then nacha tasman manushyeshu kaschin me priyakit krittamah bhavita nacha me tasman adhanya priyataro bhuvi. So he will say, not only that I am teaching, reviving this teaching, all those who come to me are dear to me, but who spread this highest secret message of Gita are dearest. Because the greatest joy for a teacher is when his teachings are spread far and wide. So he openly says, hey Arjuna, I love all the people, but I love more whoever propagates Gita. Now you will not probably understand why I am teaching Gita. I want to be loved by Krishna more and more and more. Therefore, Krishna as Gita Acharya is the real purpose of the avatara, and he revives the Vedic teaching through Gita. This is the glory of the Gita, as we have already seen in the. We also saw, Sarvo Panishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dukdham Gita Mritam Mahat. The Dhyana slokas, we saw this sloka, isn't it? There it was, Krishna is only Dogda, Gopala Nandana, only the milkman. And what is the milk? Gita is the milk. Coming from where? Sarva Upanishad Gava hai, all the Upanishad cow. And Partha is the Vatsa, that small, that, what's that called? Calf. Dugdam Gita Amritam, Gita Amritam Mahat. And at the end of every chapter also we see, it is Srimad Bhagawad Gita Shu Upanishatsu. So, Gita is nothing but the wisdom, the knowledge of self-knowledge contained in the Upanishads in a condensed form. So therefore, the first three slokas of this chapter talk about the greatness of Gita as a condensed version of the Vedas. So now let us look at the words. Krishna says, Aham imam yogam proktava. Hey Arjuna, I had given out the same teaching before in the name of the Vedas. Now I am giving this teaching in the name of Gita. Previously, the same teaching I gave in the form of Vedas. All that I have done now is giving it a new name. Like they say, in advertisements and all, new improved version. Inside the stuff is the same. So Krishna says Gita is the new name for Veda. Aham imam yogam proktavan. Yogam here stands for both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And whom did I teach before? Vivasvate proktavan. I revealed this Vedic wisdom to Surya Bhagavan. Vivaswan means Surya Bhagavan. Vivasvate to Surya Bhagavan, fourth case. I revealed this wisdom to Surya Bhagavan. So, Vivaswan, Surya Bhagavate, Aham Proktavan. I taught this, revealed this teaching. The sun, Surya Bhagavan, is called Vivaswan because the word Vivaha means Annam, food. And Vivaswan means the one who has Annam. Now it looks very strange, See how beautifully, different ways in our scriptures, they look at things rather. So here, Surya Bhagavan is being looked at only as food, as Annam. And the word Vivaswan is used to describe Surya Bhagavan because Vivaha means Annam. But then why, we have to understand, what is the connection? Annam here represents the energy or nourishment. Therefore, Vivaswan means what? The energizer, the nourisher. Because we know that the sun alone is responsible for our food, directly or indirectly. In fact, the food of every living being is sun only is responsible. For our food, we require crops. For crops to grow, we require rain. For rains, the water should be evaporated from the ocean. Krishna will tell all these things in the 9th chapter. We will repeat this there in more detail. He says, tapam yahamam varsham nagrinnapyutsrijami cha amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham arjuna. 9th chapter he will say, tapami ayam aham varsham. I alone evaporate, that is the sun alone evaporates the water from the ocean, and the sun alone gives it out in the form of rain, and rain alone is responsible for the crops. Therefore, sun is required for our food. Sun is also required for plants, photosynthesis. Without that, the plant kingdom cannot get their energy. Therefore, the sun is called the food giver, nourishment giver, energy giver, and therefore the Sanskrit word vivaha annam asya asti iti vivaswan is the derivation of the word vivaswan. Vivaha annam, vivaha means annam, asya asti, he has got. Every word, Sanskrit, that's why it's a beautiful language. Every word, it has got its derivation. And the moment you know the derivation, you will not only understand the word, but your reverence will increase. Otherwise, normally what we do during summers, we will curse the sun, isn't it? Oh, so hot. But look at sun in a totally different perspective. Food giver. Okay, so Vivaswan. So he says, I revealed this wisdom to Vivaswan, Surya Bhagavan. And what type of teaching it is? Avyayam Yogam. Here the word Avyayam does not mean unmanifest. It means it can never be destroyed. A teaching which can never go out of date, which can never become obsolete, which is ever valid. It was valid then, it is valid now, it will be valid forever in future. All other sciences may change, but this yogam, this teaching will remain relevant even now. We know how physics have changed rather. Right from Newtonian physics, then Einsteinian physics, and then today quantum physics. How many previous theories are all being overridden? But this teaching has remained the same since beginningless times. So here, Abhyayam means Sanatana. And that's why our teaching or our culture is called Sanatana Dharma. This teaching is Sanatana. Dharma here refers to the teaching. So I, as Bhagavan Mahavishnu, revealed to Surya Bhagavan this teaching. That's why the question will arise. Krishna Avatara took place only now in Dwapara Yuga. How can Krishna say that he gave this teaching? We have to understand that Krishna is an avatara. He knows his real nature, what he was when. So as Mahavishnu, as Paramatma, he had revealed this teaching to the Surya Bhagavan long back. That's how we have to understand. And what did Surya Bhagavan do? He says, Vivaswan manave praha. Vivaswan taught this to his son known as Vaivasvata Manuhu, who belongs to Surya Vamsha. So Manu is the son of Vivaswan, who is Surya Bhagavan. And Lord Rama's parampara is also called Surya Vamsha. Not called, it is Surya Vamsha. So from Surya, from Surya Bhagavan, this teaching was passed on to Manu. From Manu, all other paramparas came. All other teachers in the parampara came. Therefore, Vivaswan Manave Praha. Our age is supposed to be presided over by Vaivasvata Manu. Those who do some puja and sankalpam and all will know. We normally say, Shubhe Shobhane Muhurte Adhyam Brahmana Dutiya Parade Shvedavaraha Kalpe Vaivasvata Manmantare. Then Ashtabhimshatitame Kaliyuge Pratame Pade Jambudvipe etc. So our age, present Kali Yuga, in fact, even Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, all this entire thing, this is the Vaivasvata Manu's reign or regime is going on. So this age is supposed to be presided over by Vaivasvata Manu. And therefore this age is called Vaivasvata Manvantaram. And that's why we are also called Manavaha. The word Manavaha comes from Manu only, Manu Putraha. Therefore, Vivaswan Manave Praha. Praha means he taught to Manu. And what did Manu do? Manuhu Ikshwakave Abravit. Manu taught this to Ikshwaku. Ikshwaku is the name of another king. He was actually a Kshatriya king, Ikshwaku. So we have to note one thing here. In our tradition, we say that spiritual teaching has been coming down to two paramparas, coming down through two paramparas. One is a Brahmana parampara, another is a Kshatriya parampara. Knowledge is coming down through both these paramparas. There were four rishis, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Sanat Kumara. They represent the Brahmana parampara. Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshwaku, etc. They represent Kshatriya parampara. Rama and all come in the Kshatriya parampara. So Krishna is quoting here the Kshatriya parampara because here the student belongs to the Kshatriya parampara. Arjuna belongs to. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you see, you belong to such a wonderful parampara and therefore you should gain this knowledge. Manuhu Ikshwakave Abravit. Then what happens? Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtaf parantapa. The Anvaya of the shloka is He Parantapa Rajarshaya Viduhu Imam Evam Parampara Praptam Mahata Kalena Saha Yoga Iha Nashtaha. He Parantapa, O Arjuna, Rajarshaya, the royal sages, Viduhu, knew, Imam, this, Evam Parampara Praptam, which was thus traditionally handed down, Mahata Kalena, due to long passage of time, Saha Yoga, that yoga, Iha, in this world, Nashtaha, is lost. So, O Arjuna, the royal sages knew that this yoga, which was thus traditionally handed down, due to long passage of time, is lost in this world. Evam parampara praptam. Thus, this teaching has been coming down in the form of Guru Shishya parampara, like the perennial Ganga river. In our tradition, Ganga is often looked upon as Jnana Ganga, the flow of knowledge. That's why I think Chinmaya Mission some years back, they had come out with a series of videos called Jnana Ganga. Title was, and this wisdom was Swami Chinmayananda's talks, I think excerpts were there, Jnana Ganga. Because Ganga is perennial, Jnanam is also perennial. Ganga comes from the Lord's head, Jnanam also comes from the Lord only. Tadashiva Samarambha, Narayana Samarambha, either way you can take. Ganga removes all impurities. And about this wisdom of Gita, it is said, Mala nirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrit Gita mritasnanam samsara malamochanam. A beautiful subhashita. So if you are going to take a dip in Gita Ganga, then your samsara malam will go away. That's why, in the 18th chapter, again, Krishna will say, everyone should read at least one verse from Gita every day. In fact, you can develop this wonderful habit. I can tell you personal experience, it starts making such a big difference to your life. In fact, if you can read one chapter every day, it will be ideal. It doesn't take much time. Some chapters have got, of course, a little more slokas, but some chapters are very small, 5-10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes it takes. For those, of course, who do not have Sanskrit background, it may take a little more time initially. But as you keep on repeating, then what will happen is, you will get, even though you may not know the meaning, but the Sanskrit words and all will become easier to pronounce and read. So if it is not possible to read one chapter, read 1 or 2 verses every day from whatever we have done. Krishna doesn't say read all the 18 chapters daily and all, because he knows that we will ask, do you think that we have nothing else to do? So 1, 2 slokas. I have been reading Bhagavad Gita for the last 4 years. Initially, I started reading 1 chapter every day for a month. Like that, 3 rounds or 4 rounds I completed. Then, after that, I switched over, because then I became very familiar with the slokas, rather, at least for reading, Initially, I also had a lot of difficulty in trying to read the Sanskrit, because all sandhis are there and things like that. Even now, sometimes I struggle, because my effort always is to split the words and then say it, so that I can understand, and people who read also understand. But while splitting, unless you are very sure about the sandhi, it could mean the wrong meaning also. So sometimes I struggle to split the words rather. Now, 1 chapter, I repeat it 7 days a week. Then from Monday to Sunday, I will read chapter. From next Monday onwards, the next chapter. Like that, 18 chapters, 18 cycle, 18 weeks I complete. So in a year, probably roughly 3 times I would have read the whole Gita. It's a very good, and I can feel the difference that Gita chanting or Gita recitation is making to my life. So I would urge all of you who are really seriously interested in pursuing this, at least 1 sloka, 2 slokas, whatever it is. There is no problem, even if you half a chapter you chant and then next chapter you say, I will chant tomorrow. Doesn't matter. Start the practice. Shankaracharya says in Bhajagovindam, 2 things he advises. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. Dheyam Sripati Rupamajasram. Dheyam Sripati Rupamajasram. Meditate upon the glorious form of Bhagawad and do 2 things. Chant Gita slokas, chant Vishnu Sahasranam. For our purpose, Gita is Vedas, Vishnu Sahasranamam is also part of a wonderful advice of Bhishmacharya to the questions of Yudhishthira at the end of the Kurukshetra battle. Both these, Vishnu Sahasranamam represents Karma Yoga, Bhagavad Gita represents Jnana Yoga. If you are able to do these two things, no other puja, nothing else is required. You are on the spiritual path. Therefore, Ganga and Gita are compared because both are purifiers. Ganga is perennial, knowledge is perennial. Parampara praptam. Guru Shishya parampara praptam. And who knew that? Rajarshaya viduhu. All the Raja Rishis knew this wisdom. Even though they were not sannyasis, mind you. They were not staying in some ashram, gurukulam, etc. These Raja Rishis were very much involved in worldly activities. Here we struggle to manage one family and our other worldly commitments. And Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita and all comes last in our priority, isn't it? If there are no other pressing engagements, I will attend Gita class. I will attend Upanishad class. We never even consider for a moment, I will make attending Gita classes as my top priority. I will keep everything aside for that 1 hour every week and make Gita as top priority. We are not able to do that. Of course, the point here is that Raja Rishis, who were Raja Rishis? They were Kshatriya kings who had to take care of a huge kingdom. And in spite of their busy schedule, they managed to study Vedanta, get this wisdom. Indicates that where there is a will, there is a way. In fact, there is a very, very wrong misconception amongst many people that this Vedas and all is all Brahmana oriented, Brahmins have done and all that kind of a thing. All narration, creating narrative rather for political ends. In fact, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, most of the teachers and students are Kshatriyas. Often the teacher is a Kshatriya like Ajatashatru and all. We saw Ajatashatru's story some time ago, if you remember. And the student is a Kshatriya like King Janaka Maharaja, learning from Yajnavalkya. So Krishna says that even if you are involved in all these worldly activities, you can still get this wisdom. When the Raja can get this wisdom, and then he is called Raja Rishi, you can also get. Therefore, Rajarshaya Viduhu. Then what happened? Mahata Kalena. Due to the passage of time, gradually people started losing interest in this wisdom because distractions were many. During the long passage of time, lesser and lesser number of people became interested in this knowledge. In today's world also, different types of media, print media, visual media, social media, they all increasingly demand our time and attention, and they are a very big distraction rather. That is the situation now. But see, Krishna himself is complaining of the distraction long before, even before Bhagavad Gita times. Therefore, obstacles to this wisdom have always been there. And therefore, we need not feel guilty if we are unable to attend a few Gita classes. Okay. Because this problem is always there with this knowledge. That obstacles will always be there. Therefore, he says, He Parantapa, He Arjuna, Sahayoga Nashtaha. This teaching disappeared from the earth, or not disappeared, weakened, got weakened. Even now, once upon a time, how many patashalas were there? Everybody used to go to the patashala. School means going to the patashala, learning our Vedas, our scriptures, and also, gaining the skills for their respective professions, etc. So Krishna says now we are almost at the end of this Dwapara Yuga. Nobody is interested in all these things. Therefore, I had to revive this teaching. So he continues the next sloka. Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktosi me saka cheti rahasyam hetaduttamam. Anvaya is Sahayeva Puratanaha Yogaha Ayam te adya maya proktaha iti me saka cha bhaktaha asi etat hi uttamam rahasyam. Sahayeva, that very same Puratana Yogaha, ancient yoga, Ayam is this. Te adya maya proktaha, which has been taught by me. Iti me sakacha, because you are my friend. Bhaktaha asi, you are my devotee. Etat hi, this is indeed Uttamam Rahasyam, the highest secret. So this is the very same ancient yoga which has been taught by me to you now, because Arjuna, you are my friend and you are a devotee of mine. And this yoga, this knowledge indeed is the highest secret. Therefore, he says, seeing that my original teaching is weakening and disappearing from the earth, I decided to protect it because that was my job as a teacher. I am the one who brought this teaching to the universe through the rishis, and therefore I considered that it was my job to preserve this teaching. And therefore I decided to revive this teaching by choosing you, Arjuna, as the representative of the entire humanity. Therefore he says, Sahayeva ayam puratana maya proktaha. The very same yoga, the very same karma yoga and jnana yoga which was there, which was previously called Veda, I decided to protect. And that's why Veda itself is divided into two parts. One is Veda Purva Bhaga, another is Veda Anta Bhaga or Vedanta. Veda Purva Bhaga teaches Karma Yoga, Veda Anta Bhaga teaches Jnana Yoga. Veda Purva Bhaga gives purity, Veda Anta Bhaga gives wisdom. Veda Purva is called Karma Kandam, Veda Anta is called Jnana Kandam. So the very same Yoga Dvayam, Ayam, this is taught by me in the second and third chapter. Sahayeva Ayam Yoga Puratanaha. It is the oldest teaching, the most ancient teaching. And the beauty is that even Vedic rishis declare that we are not the inventors of this wisdom. The rishis say we ourselves got this wisdom from our Guru. Ishavasya Upanishad says, Iti Shrutam Dhiranam Ye Nastad Vichachakshire. Same problem I face. Nastad Vichachakshire. The Vedic rishis themselves were very ancient, and they say that we got it from our ancient forefathers. That means what? That means the beginning of this Vedic teaching can never be traced. Maximum, see, people say 5,000 years old and all that. That's all based upon the time of Veda Vyasa, because Vedas were recorded by Veda Vyasa in a written form, or in a easier form. They were divided into 4 Vedas. Vedas was one single body of knowledge divided into 4 different parts and all that, 4 Vedas and all. From that time, we can know, okay, this is the lineage which has come. Before that, what was there, nobody knows. But it was there. Because it was there, only Veda Vyasa could do his job, his work. Therefore, Krishna says, Puratana Yoga Maya Proktaha. So, Krishna also is one of the traditional Acharyas in the Parampara only. Before Krishna, there were so many. But Veda Vyasa himself was there before, during Krishna's time. He was a higher teacher than Krishna. Now, there is a question. Some people ask, why did Krishna choose Arjuna? Basically, the question itself is misplaced, because Krishna did not choose Arjuna. On the contrary, it was Arjuna who chose Krishna as his guru. If Dharmaputra had asked, Krishna would have happily taught him, but he did not ask. Bhima did not ask. Nakula Sahadeva did not ask. Even from the opposite camp, even if Duryodhana had approached Krishna, he would have taught Duryodhana also. A guru will never see, he will only see if a student is interested, I will teach. Since only Arjuna asked, Krishna chose to teach him. He asked for it. Shishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. I surrender to you. I am your disciple. Shishyasteham. Please teach me. Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. I surrender to you. This is Arjuna said. So Krishna taught Arjuna. And to become a disciple, what is the most important qualification? Shraddha and Bhakti. Scriptures say, Shraddha Bhakti Jnana Yogat Avaihi. In this very same chapter, later on, Krishna will also say, Shraddhavan Labate Jnanam. And Krishna says, Arjuna, I chose you because Bhaktosi me Sakha. You are my friend. You are my devotee also. You are ready to listen to me. Because getting people to listen is the most difficult thing. All of us who have children would have experienced that. Why children? Even if you don't have children. Between spouses itself, the most difficult thing is getting the other person to listen to what you want to say. Because most of the time we observe, when we are speaking, either others are also speaking, or others are thinking what response I should give to this, whatever is being presented. So they are not listening. They are in fact preparing themselves to respond. This is the internal dialogue which keeps on taking place whenever we are listening to something. So, Bhakta Asime Sakacha iti. And here Krishna adds another beautiful statement. Arjuna, even if you had not asked, I would have told you because you are my friend. And that gives us a very beautiful message. When a friend commits a mistake, it is the responsibility of the other friend to point out that mistake, to guide that friend, that friend to avoid committing that mistake, or at least provide a solution to that friend. Okay. It's time now. We will stop here, continue in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you,
Hari Om.
Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you,
Guruji.
Guruji. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Guruji,
Yeah.
Surya Bhagavan taught his first son Manu. However, Karna was not so lucky.
Karna was born much later.
True, but still it is his son, no?
Correct, correct. Yeah, that is. So we are called Manushyas, not Karnushyas.
No, what I'm saying, had he benefited by Surya's teaching, he would have perhaps not towed the line of Duryodhana.
Correct. See, what happens is, these days it may not be true. In olden days, when people used to have 13 children, 14 children, 15 children, and all that. By the time the last child is born, the parents would have been in their 50s. So the attention that they give to the younger children is much less than what they would have given to the elder children.
Eldest child.
So what holds good for humans holds good for Surya Bhagavan also, because Karna was born in the Dwapara Yuga, whereas Manu was the son of Surya Bhagavan, the first son of Surya Bhagavan. So he was immediately available, so he taught him. Karna, much later he came, right? By the time Surya Bhagavan would have said, okay, I have already taught and this parampara has been set. Now if Karna is interested, let him approach a guru and let him learn. In fact,
but he remained a mute spectator, what was happening.
No, that is, you see, because actually speaking, Karna was interested in this teaching. He went to Dronacharya.
True.
But because he was considered to be this story that he was Surya's son, that he was a Kshatriya, nobody knew. The only
Krishna knew
that was only this lady, the mother of the Pandavas.
Kunti.
Nobody else knew that. And she also reveals that only in Mahabharata when she wants to, that also she is so partial. She knows Karna is my son. She doesn't want Karna to be killed. She doesn't want Pandavas to be killed. So she tries to go and confuse Karna by telling him that you are actually the brother of the Pandavas and you should not fight them and things like that and all. But for Karna, that character, he is highlighting the emotional involvement, how it can actually lead to delusion. Because of his friendship with Duryodhana, Karna was so emotionally attached to Duryodhana that what is dharma, what is adharma, also he did not at that particular point in time recall it. Even though Karna was supposed to be a very great dharmic person. Right? Even he knew dharma, but that because of his emotional attachment at that moment before the war, the loyalty to Duryodhana was so high that he forgot everything else. And that is exactly, in fact, if Bhagavad Gita had been written by Vyasacharya from Karna's angle also, not Arjuna's, he would have probably written the same thing. Raga hai, shoka hai, moha hai, only he would have started with. Karna's problem was also raga hai, shoka hai, moha hai, only rather.
That is his past karmas. Consequences of his past karmas.
Consequences of his past karmas, no. But here also, he had the free will to actually, as I say, past karmas only present you with the situation. How you react to the situation is your free will, rather. But there also, his free will was clouded with this emotional dependence on Duryodhana, because Duryodhana helped him at the right time and things like that and all. He did not go beyond that. So, it's not Karna's fault alone. In fact, it is a human tendency rather. We see in our own families, isn't it? We are so emotionally dependent upon or emotionally attached to our children. Whatever mistake they commit, we just overlook them.
Overlook.
The same mistake if a neighbor's son or children do, we will make big complaint. But our own children, we will overlook those mistakes. So it's a human failure as such, rather. So this.
Another point, like you said, Arjuna sought the help of Krishna. You said, had Duryodhana also sought the help of Krishna, he would have. Do you think, knowing fully well that Duryodhana was in the adharma way, what kind of a guidance he could have given him?
He would have told him what is dharma.
True. Do you think the battle would have been called off?
We don't know, because these are all, you see, in history, there are no ifs and buts. We can only some hypothetical situation we can just discuss. But that my history teacher in my college always used to say, in history there are no ifs and buts. If this had happened and all, you can't say, because that did never happened rather, right? So how can you say that if this had not, if Modi had not been elected the PM, India would have become like this? Can you say that? We can't say
Most
that.
Certainly not.
Yeah, so we don't know. That never happened rather. We can only talk about what we have experienced and not some on hypothetical situation that if this fellow had come, this would have happened and all. And so that is a theoretical or academic discussion. The point being made is, as a guru, Krishna, anybody who approached him with the surrender, surrendering to the teacher with bhakti and shraddha, he would have done it. Because you see, in Duryodhana's case, it's a very beautiful case. See, each character in Mahabharata is chiseled so lovely by Vedavyasa. Duryodhana knew what was dharma. Duryodhana knew what was adharma. But he tells that I know what is dharma, but something inside me is impelling me not to follow dharma. I know what is adharma, but something inside me is forcing me to follow adharma. He says so in so many words in the Mahabharata. So again, the character, it's not necessary a person per se is bad. There could be so many reasons, like his past samskaras, past karma, so many things are there. That's why Puja Swamiji always said, never judge a person. You never know what his circumstances are. There is nothing called evil. There is nothing called a bad person.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Beautiful words. Every person, we see them as good or bad depending upon how we see them rather. You see a person as a person, certain circumstances may have forced him to act in the way that he acted rather. That does not make the person bad. It makes maybe the action was bad, but the person is not bad. That was Puja Swamiji's one of the most, I would call it, glorious teachings, which I will always remember. Never judge anybody.
Exactly.
So even Duryodhana, Karna and all that, we must not become judgmental in trying to say, oh, Karna was bad or Duryodhana was bad and things like that and all that. But all these characters highlight certain human failures, so human frailties rather. And by studying these characters, by understanding these stories, if we find in our own contemplation, in our own introspection, that we are also suffering from those infrailities or those frailties, then we can do something in order to overcome that. That is how we have to approach the whole thing, rather than academically just discussing all these things.
Lessons to be learned.
lessons to be learned for self-improvement. Because there is no end to improvement. You can keep on improving every day. You can bring in something to improve yourself.
Without a doubt, yes, yes.
We know from all these stories, Itihasa, Puranas only, what are all the areas that we should focus on improving ourselves.
True.
That's how it is.
Just one.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
Just one question, Guruji.
Yes, sir.
That you said that it was the Lord gave it to the Vishwan and Vivaswan, and then he passed it on to Manu and then to Ikshvaku, so it became to Kshatriya. Now, what about the other? How did he pass on this to the rishis?
Rishis also, see, there were two groups of people. One is these rishis who were taught the Nivritti Marga. The two parts of Veda, one is Nivritti Marga, one is Pravritti Marga, right?
Yeah.
The Pravritti Marga was taught to the Kshatriyas. The rishis who were basically the Nivritti Marga, which is Sannyasa, etc., which is basically Vedanta, who had Jnana, that Vairagyam, Viveka, and all that kind of, that portion of that. That Jnana Kanda portion was taught to those rishis, who then spread that. The idea was teaching this by Bhagavan was that both are important. Materialistic goals are also important for a life. Spiritual goals are also important for life. So he made two teams. One team, you go and spread this thing, Kshatriyas, kingdom, ruling, materialistic goals. You teach people this. Rishis, you go and teach this to what is that, Jnana Kanda or this spiritual district, you teach to people. So Bhagavan gave these two set of people these tasks, the teachings for popularizing and spreading it to the humanity.
So am I to understand that Lord, the first teaching he gave it to Vivaswan, which followed the Kshatriya. So the other teaching to the rishis was those four rishis whom you mentioned.
Yes. There is a lineage there also.
Yes, yes.
There is a lineage from Sanat Kumara and all that. There are, teachers are there rather. But here, because Arjuna is a Kshatriya, Krishna is talking about the Kshatriya lineage, which starts from Surya Vamsha, Surya.
Yeah.
So that is what Krishna is talking about. He is not talking about the other part. Because for Arjuna, that Sanatana, Sanat Kumara and all that, he will not be impressed. He says, who are those people? I have no connection with them. But if you tell your forefather, Ikshvaku, got this teaching and he passed it on, and then it came down through Janaka and all that, Yagyavalkya, Janaka and all in the Treta Yuga. It has come down to you, Arjuna. Your forefathers' teaching is coming to you. Then Arjuna will be interested in that because it is coming, is my parampara, my Kshatriya parampara, this teaching is coming.
Okay.
So Krishna is also very smart. He does not quote something which Arjuna will not relate to. He is quoting something which Arjuna will relate to, rather, isn't it? We also do that often, isn't it? Suppose
Yes.
you want to tell something to somebody. Because my son is a very big fan of Steve Jobs. Okay. So whenever I want to tell him something, I try to find something about Steve Jobs and then tell him, I have read that Steve Jobs also did this. Steve Jobs also said this and all that. Then he will immediately relate to that. If I tell him that, no, our priest has told this, he will say, let the priest go to hell. I don't care. But if it's the same thing, if Steve Jobs has said, he will say, okay, fine. So that is our human psychology. When you tell something to somebody with which they can relate to, then it goes inside with lot of force rather. Krishna is using that same psychology with Arjuna.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sitaram.
I have a question. Arjuna, the character is in Mahabharata,
Yeah.
who is supposed to be the Chandravanshi.
No,
Ramayana is Surya Vamsham.
no, they are all Kshatriya kings, they are all coming. I'm not very sure about Surya Vamsham, Ramayana Surya Vamsham, because we have to go to Pandu and things like that and all. How the Chandra Vamsham comes in, I'm not very sure about that. I will have to check that and let you know if it is Chandra Vamsham. From where we get that, I'll have to check that because I have not.
I happened to read something about it a couple of days back. That's how I know. Otherwise, I had no clue about it.
Fair enough. I'm not challenging you. What I'm saying is, I myself am not aware of it. Because the one thing common is Kshatriya. Rama was a Kshatriya, Arjuna is a Kshatriya. That Kshatriya business is there. Right? Now, so far as the Vamsham is concerned, I will have to check that.
And one thing, sorry, I'll just add one point. You said about the person may not be bad as such. Action is good, bad. My 5-year-old grandson, a remark was made by the teacher that Arjun, one of his classmates, is a bad, some remark. So he tells his mother, Amma, Arjun is a very nice boy, but what he did was wrong.
Correct?
It's a 5-year-old kid analyzing it.
See the small child's wisdom, Exactly. Nobody is bad in the world. You should approach everybody with that attitude. Nobody is bad. Circumstances, sometimes the actions which they do, and actions also, they don't apply their mind. They don't look at dharma, and all that kind of thing, If they have considered all that, they would have never probably done that action. And then every human being has got different scales. I mean, we cannot weigh every human being with the same scale, rather, right? So everybody is different. So we have to take everybody for what they are. Never judge them. Never be judgmental about what they do or what they are. You can judge what they do, whether it's a right action, wrong action, right? So focus then moves from the person to the action, rather, nature of the action. That is what it is.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying something.
Did you? No, I think I said what I wanted to say. Regarding that child only, I was telling, that a small child, see the kind of wisdom the child has got.
Yeah, in psychology, they say, but
when we look at somebody, we find that has done something wrong, and most times we will react to that, right? Or we will form an opinion about that person and all that. But many times, when we sit back and we think about it, we will find that, that person is a nice person. Then if you start analyzing further, then you will find these circumstances which forced him to do this kind of a thing. So it's a very big topic, rather. If we start to go into that. But basically, which is what we have to understand, Duryodhana's character is what I was referring to at that time. So, Janami dharmam nachame pravrittihi, Janami adharmam nachame nivrittihi, he says. I know what is dharma, but I cannot follow that. Something inside me is forcing me not to follow them. Nachame pravrittihi. Janami adharmam. I know what is adharma. Nachame nivritti, but I am not able to give up that adharma. This Duryodhana says. So again the question is, Duryodhana as a person, we have to see what Duryodhana is. Then Duryodhana's action, forced action, by circumstances or whatever you can call, we can find the reasons, samskara and all that we will say. But eventually, it is the play of the free will which does all these things. Because by using the free will only, we do all these things. Right action, wrong action. And that is what comes as karma to us. And that karma forces even a good person to do wrong things. So that's as I said, it's a very, very deep topic. Various views could be there on that, and we have to do very lot of analysis we have to do. But for the present, we have to just understand this Surya Vamsham, Chandra Vamsham business. I will check it up and let you know in the next class. It's a good question. The only thing I can see is the Kshatriya connection is there. Even though when Krishna is pointing out the Kshatriya connection, he is not saying that you are from Surya Vamsha. I gave the example of Rama from being Surya Vamsha. Does not mean that Arjuna also is from the Surya Vamsha. But then again, I am not sure about this Vamsha of Arjuna and all that. You may be right where you have read that is Chandra Vamsha. So let's find out rather. Let me find out and I'll clarify it to you in the next class. Okay. Are you? Lataji, yes.
Namaste, Guruji.
There.
It is this chapter 4. Many times I've tried doing self-study of Bhagavad Gita or my own, depending on based on the book and elaborate commentary given by Swami Chidbhavananda. But at every point, at very important points, I used to get stuck, and then I used to think that okay, it's beyond me, and then it'll happen whenever it'll happen. So what was taught by Bhagavan to Surya Bhagavan and then to Manuji and Ikshvaku, now we have the good fortune and blessing of being taught by you, Guruji. That's very nice. No, Guru is Guru. That's feeling really blessed about it, Guruji. And the what exactly, I know my question might be quite silly. I taught this in the beginning to Surya Bhagavan. So how exactly does it, I know we don't have to go into all these intricate details to go on the path of spirituality, but just out of interest, talk to Surya Bhagavan, meaning what exactly does it mean? Surya Bhagavan means the sun we are seeing now, the same Surya Bhagavan, right?
Same Surya Bhagavan.
Same Surya Bhagavan.
Because Surya Bhagavan has been there.
Yeah.
It goes into unmanifest form, manifest form, unmanifest, manifest.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm, okay. Right.
So it's the same Surya Bhagavan. In fact, in the beginning of every kalpa,
yeah,
the same thing happens. Bhagavan teaches Surya Bhagavan.
Yeah.
Then the Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. Then again, one small pralayam. At the end of the, another cycle after kalpa, that Mahapralaya will come, everything will go into unmanifested. So that Surya Bhagavan is the same Surya Bhagavan. We are also doing Sandhya Vandanam and all, it's the same Surya Bhagavan.
Right. Yeah. Just another interesting thing just I wanted to add is that my telling them something to which they can relate. My son is an automobile engineer. Anything I have to say, if I say it with relation to car, then he understands. Yeah,
that's what.
And nobody is bad. It's just the circumstances which make them bad. In Hindi, there's a popular kahavat that we say, "Insan bura nahi hota, halat bure hote hain."
Bure hote hain. Exactly. Indeed, is said. That's why very important when our children are growing up, they will have some special friends, right? And if you have to find out about those friends, and if they are really good people, then when you tell your children something, they don't listen to you, you advise them, go and ask that person, he will tell you what is right. And when they go and that person says the same thing, then they will listen. If we tell, there is a resistance rather. I have employed this with my son umpteen number of times rather. Even today I am doing that because there is a good friend of his who studied MBA with him. Very nice guy in Canada. He is very close to him also. So whenever I tell something to my son, he doesn't. He will resist. He says, no, you are not right. No. I'll say, okay, fine. Whatever I told you.
Parents are never right.
Parents are never right. Yeah, parents are never right. So I tell him, go and ask Hitesh and see what is advice. And 99.9% Hitesh will give the same advice which I have given. Then he will do it. If I tell, he won't do. So this is all we have to. This is all bringing up children kind of thing. So,
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hari Om. Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next week. Hari Om.
See you next.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om. Sudhika ji. Thank you.